Hi, my name's Elliot, I'm 22 and I've been in ketosis for 5 years, and this is the Keto Kitchen's Keto in a Nutshell. Ketosis, or more commonly known as keto, is a metabolic state where your body burns ketones rather than glucose for energy. Our bodies can only use either sugar from glucose or fat from ketones to keep us alive. And most people in the world use sugar as their main energy source. And you might say, but I don't have much added sugar in my diet. But what about carbohydrates? This is a glucose chemical structure. It is a Hallworth projection of alpha-D-glucose, if you want to get really technical about it. And this is a carbohydrate chemical structure. But it's not just any carbohydrate, no. This is a complex carbohydrate, a starch. And you can see that the complex carb structure is just a chain of the glucose structures. And we eat carbohydrates because not only are they the most prominent food in our stores, but because we've all grown up being told by our governments that carbohydrates are the most important food and fat is the least important. Ketosis throws everything that you've been taught about the three main macronutrients on its head. A ketogenic diet in its simplest form is a diet that consists of about 75% fat, 25% protein and 5% carbs daily. And by eating this way, your body changes what it actually does for energy. So with a high carb lifestyle, your body does a more scientific version of this. You consume sugar via bread, pasta, potatoes, wheats, flours, chocolate, fizzy drinks with sugar in them, sugary foods themselves, and that sugar then goes into your liver. It converts sugar that isn't needed at that time into little bundles and it stores them in the liver. And this is for later use, say like when you're asleep, so that you don't run out of energy and wake up hungry. Then when the liver gets full of these bundles, because they're being made more than they're being used, your liver clears the space by shipping these bundles down into fat cells to be stored as body fat. Now, considering in 2016 about 60% of Americans and Europeans were overweight, and currently right now 30%, just over, of the entire world's population is obese, it is safe to say that unless you are an athletic type or you have a metabolism quicker than the obesity rates are rising, you're not likely to need more energy than you consume. So therefore you won't need that stored fat. So it stays there in our fat cells, leaving many of us overweight or obese. Now, keto, on the other hand, does more or less this. You consume a high-fat, moderate protein and low-carb diet. Your body uses up all of that sugar within your liver within about sort of 48 hours. Your body realizes that you're not feeding it sugar and it starts to grab energy from the fat on your body. But as well, you are eating high fat. And majority of fat bypasses that whole into the liver sort of process that sugar does, and it just is used straight up as energy for your body. Well, it's used as energy providing you're not eating more than you're needing to. And I hear you ask, why would you follow a fad diet when carbs have been so important for thousands and thousands of years? Quick origin story. Ketosis in its simplest form has been around for a lot longer than this carbs are crucial movement. Back in 500 BC to 400 BC, in the south of what we now call Europe, a few famous blokes called Plato, Hippocrates, Socrates, Aristotle and Pythagoras, to name a few, did and promoted prolonged fasting. And what's that got to do with keto? Well, fasting for over sort of 8 to 12 hours begins a very low state of ketosis. And this is solid proof that keto's been around for over 2,500 years. But instead of going through every single case of ketosis between then and now, let's have a look at some of the people that are always ignored when this whole argument about carbs being around for hundreds of thousands of years comes up. Firstly, we have the Inuits. Their diet consists of mammals, fish, eggs and animal fat. And then we have many Native American tribes such as Blackfoot, Walla Walla, Coast Salish, Chippewa and Creek Native, to just name a few. And their diets have consisted of mammals, fish, animal fat, roots, greens, nuts, seeds, seaweed, flowers, tree bark and sap, and berries and apples when harvestable. Then there's the Maasai people, and the Maasai people have a diet that consists of meat, milk, blood, vegetables, fruits and maize meal when harvestable. And then there's the Chukachka people, who have a diet that consists of caribou, reindeer, marine animals, fish, seaweed, green leaves and berries and roots when harvestable. Let me get straight to the two most important people when it comes to the ketogenic diet and its origins. Firstly, there is William Banting and Dr. Harvey. Banting appears to be the first sort of documented case of a doctor recommending a high-fat, low-carb diet to a patient. Now, this is very important to ketosis, but it is not where the name ketosis comes from. This was actually called the Banting diet, and the Banting diet is still a name that is used for the ketogenic diet, but it's not as common. And then we get to Rolling Turner Woodyard. Woodyard and his colleague Minnie Gustav Peterman are the reasons we call it ketosis or the ketogenic diet. Woodyard reviewed research on diabetes and actually used that information to treat children with epilepsy. And it's because a well-known treatment for epilepsy back then was fasting. Now, I don't know if you've ever done a fast, but it is difficult for an adult to fast for prolonged periods. So how can you expect a child, especially, with growing, to do the same thing? Woodyard realised the three types of ketones that were made when people fasted were also made when people had a low carb, high fat diet. Hence the name for ketosis. Keto to mean ketones, and sis to be the Greek for a condition, act or state, a state of ketones. And Peterman, his colleague, he basically took what Wyatt had found out about keto and epilepsy and kind of tweaked it a little bit so that there was a technique and a method, so it was a lot easier for patients to get into a state of ketosis. Now, I know that out of some of these people I've just mentioned in history that are on a form of keto have eaten carbs, tubers, fruits, some root vegetables. But this is important to note, right? Those high carb foods were A, not the same back then as they are now, and B, they were not produced as much. Tribes had to grow them. Whereas if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you can go into a shop like this, down an aisle like this, and buy high carb foods very easily. But if you were to grow, say, potatoes, looking at a crop calendar that happens to be for hotter areas such as Pakistan and Uganda, 1, the ground has to be sown from about January to mid-March. 2, the potatoes themselves have to actually be grown from about mid-March to about mid-April. And 3, the potatoes are then harvestable from about mid-April to mid-June. And then the rest of the time is usually fallow, which is where they just leave the ground alone with no fertilizers or anything so that it can just grow back for next year's crop calendar. These tribes, some of them that are no longer around, but many of them that are still present to this day, like Inuits and Maasai people, they don't have elements that help them grow fruit and veg faster, nor are they able to grow these high carb foods outside of their crop calendars, nor are they able to grow certain fruit and veg that is outside of their region because their ground and temperature aren't ideal for those crops, nor do they have things, many of them, like fridges and freezers to preserve food. So they would eat potatoes for those 2 months of the year when they were harvestable, and then the rest of the year it would be a high fat, low carb diet. Look, I could talk about vegetables now and vegetables then for hours on end, but what I'm trying to say is that if the entirety of human history was a clock, a whole 24 hours, do you know how long we've been eating cereals and grains? 5 minutes. And do you know how long we've been eating sugars? 5 seconds. You can barely even see it. Commercially sliced bread has been around for less than 100 years. The English Queen, my monarch, is older than sliced bread. The lifestyle of eating a high-fat, low-carb diet is not new. It is not a fad. It is just because the term itself, ketosis, ketogenic, that is quite a new coined term in history. So it is perceived as a new diet. Well, there's that, and the sugar lobby hiding research in the 50s that showed you how bad sugar and carbohydrates for you, but that's a video for a different day. So we've spoken about the origins. Let's talk about the most important thing. Why you should do ketosis. The benefits. We've already spoken about epilepsy, and that is a big reason that people come to keto, but let's talk about the other two really important reasons people come to keto. Firstly is weight loss. Look anywhere online and you'll see some amazing results of the fantastic transformations people have had with ketosis. That's why I came. 4 stone in 10 months. In fact, here's a photo. That is exactly 1 year apart between those photos. No exercise, just ketosis. And the other benefit is the reversal or the remission of type 2 diabetes. But there are so many more reasons that people come to ketosis and they stay in ketosis. Let's run through them real quick. Belly fat reduction, reduced chance of pre-diabetes, which is also known as metabolic syndrome, polycystic ovarian reduction and sometimes remission. It helps folk with autism. It helps folk with mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, bipolar, and so on. You get better sleep, you have more energy, you have better muscle growth. It helps with IBS symptoms, it helps with MS symptoms, it helps prevent Alzheimer's. You have better overall brain function, it helps the recovery of traumatic brain injuries, it helps reduce migraine, you have better eyesight, you have less heartburn, you have less illness in general such as the common cold, it helps prevent gallstones, it helps with kidney stones and gout, you have more mental clarity. It's used as therapy for Parkinson's. You have better fertility. Keto has anti-aging properties. It will give you softer skin. You will have better skin in terms of spots, acne and psoriasis. It will help break down scar tissue and stretch marks, making them not as obvious. They'll fade quicker. You're no longer driven by hunger. And this is to name a few. Okay, benefits, done. Let's move on to how you get into a ketogenic lifestyle. Eat less carbs, eat way more fat, keep your fat higher than your protein. You can go ahead and do a macro calculator. I've linked one below, and basically what you do is you put in things like your gender, your age, how much you work out, how much you weigh, all of that kind of stuff, and it will tell you pretty much exactly how much fat, protein and carbs you should be eating daily. But when you start keto, if you start by keeping your carbs about 25 grams or below daily and you eat lots of fat, you will begin to enter ketosis within about 18 hours or so. If you're not eating potatoes, pasta, rice, bread, what the hell can you eat?
And now it's time for Billy Bantings and his song Keto Food.
Pepperoni, salami, and even pastrami, and bacon and sausages too. Tasty cold cuts of ham, wagyu beef from Japan, steak that is well done or blue. You can eat fish and veal, a part of your meal, and finish it off with a squab. Chicken, turkey, and pheasant is really quite pleasant. You can even have kebabs. Most meat is fine if it jumps or if it flies or if it swims down under the sea. Just be careful with fillers because they're not fulfilling, and carbs to what you eat. I'll move on to dairy because I guarantee that this is the best way to get fats. Cheeses and cream, yogurts and ghee, buy butter in kilo packs. There's so much more blubber to eat with your supper. Oils like MCTs, avocado and olive and tallow to dollop. There's so many fats you can eat. Fruit is too sugary, but you can have berries providing it's not all the time. Blueberries and raspberries and strawberries are fine to eat. Finish them off with a lime. In terms of veggies, it gets pretty scary because some are super high carbs. Stick to leafy veg, kale and spinach, the rest in keto won't be so hard. You can also have broccoli and collie quite liberally, and the veg above ground. The stuff in the dirt will make you revert, and soon you'll put on the pounds. Make some cookies or breads with almonds instead, no pasta or anything wheat. Loop and coconut whey flours that are okay, it will feel just like a cheat. But there's no cheating actually involved. You can also have nuts, but limit them because the carbs get pretty large. Eat chocolate that starts 70 is the mark, any lower is a splurge. In terms of drink, this one's easy I think. Water should be your best friend. Tea is okay, coffee keeps you awake. Soda consumption should end. Drink alcohol to your limit as long as it's spirits, but no when enough is enough. You can make stuff sweetener with some sweeteners. Do all of this, and if you persist, keto adapted and all of the benefits right in the palm of your hand.
Wasn't he fantastic? Give him a hand, brilliant. Thank you, Billy. Now, ketosis does not have to be boring. Everyone thinks that we just eat avocados, butter and bacon. No. Look at this playlist, right? You see all of this? All of these desserts are keto friendly and they are right here on this channel for free. The next important question is, How do you actually know that you're in ketosis? You need to look out for these symptoms. Now bear in mind, most of these are temporary. And by temporary, I mean 1 to 2 weeks and they should be gone. You feel tired and then really energized a few days later. You feel focused, you're not as hungry, you're thirstier, you have a dry mouth, your mouth tastes like nail polish, your sweat is smellier, you have rapid weight loss, this is from water weight, you have toilet troubles that can go either way, you're struggling to sleep, but most importantly, you have symptoms of the keto flu. The keto flu is something that can make or break your keto journey, so listen to what I'm about to say very carefully. Keto flu is called as such because it sort of mimics the flu in symptoms, and this is when your body is getting used to a change in metabolic state, when you go from glucose to ketones. But it is avoidable with a 4-syllable word: electrolytes. The electrolytes are super important minerals that keep your body functioning in many different ways. When you start keto, your electrolytes drop, and you need to keep them up to prevent the keto flu, to minimize any of the keto flu symptoms, and to keep your body healthy. Get more salt in your diet for sodium, eat more seeds, spinach, avocado, fish and dark chocolate for magnesium, or failing that, actually have supplements, because interestingly enough, keto or not, 80% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. Get more spinach, kale, nuts, meat, salmon and mushrooms in your diet for potassium. These 3 electrolytes are crucial to a good keto start. But in terms of actually knowing 100% whether you are in a state of ketosis, the only way you can do that is by testing your ketones. And you can do this in one of 3 ways. Number 1, which is the least reliable but the cheapest, is urine sticks that you wee on and they give you a result. Number 2 is a semi-conductive breathalyzer. Again, really cheap but not 100% reliable. You breathe into a tube and it tells you that you have alcohol in your system, but it can't recognize the difference between a ketone and alcohol, yada yada yada. Number 3, which is the most expensive way but the most reliable way, is by having your bloods tested at a doctor's or with a blood monitor that can read ketones and reading that result. If any of them log 0.5 millimoles per litre or higher, you're in a state of ketosis. Oh, and a few more things. Atkins is not quite keto. The only part of Atkins that is ketogenic is the first phase of it. And even then, Atkins relies a lot on you buying their online courses and their Atkins branded foods. And then not to mention that, as I said, phase 1 is only ketogenic and there's 2 other phases and it gets very complicated. And gluten-free is also not keto. Gluten-branded foods are usually very high carb. Because they're the same wheat-filled product, they just don't have the proteins called gluten in them. I know all of these things are sometimes similar, but they aren't quite the same. So if someone you know tells you that they are in ketosis, they're ketogenic, please don't buy them gluten-free or Atkins food. We appreciate the gesture, but we'd rather you just handed us a pot of cream and a spoon. This has been the Keto Kitchen's Keto in a Nutshell. And now that you've been briefed on ketosis, go ahead and give it a go. Also, make sure you like this video, subscribe for more keto content, leave me any questions, any comments, any queries, anything down below. Keep calm, keto on. Thanks for watching.